Level up with the new AAA Commanders MVP membership. Get all the benefits of AAA plus exclusive experiences, discounts, and tickets. Already a AAA member? Upgrade for free or join today at AAA.com/commanders. Hola y bienvenidos, mi podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. Have stories up now from Spain, of course. I'm out in Madrid. Have something on, a few things, but also we have a lot of social media stuff that I've been contributing to. And then don't forget, you can go to the app, go to the SportsCenter app or ESPN app, and personalize your app so you get all the Commander stuff. You can go to the app, see the word Verts, click on that. You'll see SC for you. Click on that. I've been doing something every day. Have something up now about I think it's up now about Joe Whitt and what he had to say on Friday here in Madrid. And then some thoughts, a couple of interesting comments from Dan Quinn. So give that, I'm going to talk about some of that here, but you can see this pretty mug over there too. So anyway, there you go. That's on the app. Let's see, got a couple things for you club members. I apologize for not being able to do anything. I don't think we're going to do anything before the game because it's going to be 6:30 Eastern time when the game's on. I don't know that anybody really wants to be up. And do you want to be up at 6:30 talking about the Commanders before this game? I don't know about that. So if you're over here in Europe, go have fun. And we'll get back to those little chats the next week, and we'll be doing the live stream Tuesday when we get back to the States. So there you go. It's been a fun week here. I will say this, and I'll get into this in a minute because it's been a good trip. But I'll talk about this in a minute it's one of my thoughts. So I'll save it there. A couple of things to go over. Obviously, Terry McLaurin not going to play. He's out again. Of course, we already knew that was going to be. There's really no issue with the injury report that we didn't know. Ben Sinnott, though, and Jordan McGee are both questionable. See what happens on Sunday. But I do want to clear up a couple of things with Terry and Noah Brown. Like, why people keep asking, why are they here? Why are they deserving? Because they're working with the trainers and the staff, the strength and conditioning staff, the athletic trainers. These are who they want them to be working with. This is not a reward for something. This is a continuation of their rehab. So this is why they are here. Like Terry, both were out in the field. Noah Brown was there the other day. We saw McLaurin working on the side, just doing some basically stretching and some things like that. So, but that's why they're here. It's to work with the staff. Like those guys aren't back in Ashburn. Obviously there's kind of a skeleton crew back there, but it's not what they need at this point in their rehab. Like Jaden Daniels is back in Ashburn for that reason. Like he's also not at the point where he's really kind of ready to do all that. He was still his arm was still in the brace as of Sunday. I do know he's getting to the facility early. I do know he's still doing what he does as far as, other prep work that he can do because he is getting there pretty early still. So anyway, just wanted to go over that. And then let's see, they signed, but one of the guys that they signed was River Craycraft the other day and to the practice squad. Wouldn't shock me if he's elevated because he was working as a returner in practice along with Jalen Lane. So like, just something to watch for, just another receiver who might be bumped up from the practice squad. Kind of had a few this year. And then obviously like Drake Jackson's out there working. His 21-day window is open. He was out there at practice working the other day. Just be curious to see where that goes. It's really hard to expect a whole lot from him. He hasn't played in about 2 years. He had a really bad knee injury. The patellar tendon was much like Chase Young's. Like the mistake with Chase Young, not the mistake, but the mistake in how it was categorized was just an ACL. It was the patellar tendon was the worst part. That's what Jackson has. So I do know that he's happy to be here. I think he likes the situation here. I think, it doesn't sound like in San Francisco, the rehab for him was going well. That's why, but anyways, he's gone from there. So we'll see where he goes. But I would say I think this is a guy that can he show something this year that warrants a spot for the future? Like that's what we're looking at here. So anyways, again, just I think like Burks, Trey Burks, kind of a good guy to say, okay, take a shot. What else you got to lose at this point? And you may as well invest in somebody that maybe there's a little bit more of a payoff if he comes through. But that was a really bad injury. I like the mindset he has. I think he's got a good attitude. But you can have all that, and can you be the same? Can you be close to the same player you were to provide depth, if nothing else? So anyway, that I just want to go over that. By the way, with Craycraft, I thought it was funny because like he took his physical at the hangar at Dulles. Like that's how late it was when they signed him. The team was already there. That's where he had to take his physicals. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's getting darker earlier and moods can be altered because of it. That can make it a tough time for many. That's why this November, BetterHelp is encouraging everyone to reach out, check in on friends, reconnect with loved ones, and remind the people in your life that you're there. I know I'm going to be checking in on Rick Snyder's family. I know it has to be a difficult time for them going through the holidays. I'm sure you know someone in a similar spot. It takes a little courage to sometimes make those calls, but it's always worth it. BetterHelp is there for you as well. BetterHelp therapists have helped more than 5 million people worldwide on their mental health journeys. The right therapist can change everything, and BetterHelp has 12 plus years experience in matching people to the right therapist. With more than 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, and it works with an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for a live session based on more than 1.7 million client reviews. This month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it easier to take that first step. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Ampire. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Ampire. Commanders fans, your fandom just got an upgrade. Introducing the AAA Commanders MVP membership, where real fans get real perks and the same trusted AAA membership benefits. The new AAA Commanders membership provides the chance to win game tickets, access to VIP events and experiences, 15% off at the Commanders online pro shop, while providing peace of mind for Commanders fans on the road. Already a AAA member? Don't sit on the sideline. Upgrade your membership or join today at AAA.com/Commanders. Let's get to my 5 thoughts. Number 1, I thought Joe Whitt handled the situation well. Though we're beyond like, is this the right move or not? Yes, it was. They had to do something. We all know that. Like it wasn't working. Some of it was because of injuries. Some of it is because there's flat out inconsistencies. Even when healthy, they weren't playing well. And by healthy, like clearly they lost, Dietrich Wise and Will Harris early in the year, but they weren't really playing well. And that shouldn't have crippled them the way it did, right? So there were other issues going on. What are they? And I'm not laying them all on Joe Whitt either. I know it's always the easy one to do. I think people need to realize how much and how many people are invested in this and what their roles are. Like, you need to have good assistants. You need to have this. You have the right players. Like there's so much that goes into it. That's why it's hard to just blame one person. But in this situation, it's not a blame because they've tried a lot of other stuff, but this is the next step. So here's like, hey, this isn't working. This isn't working. This isn't working either. Let's try this. So, but anyways, we're beyond that to saying, is this the right move or not? Like it wasn't working. We know that. But I do like how Whitt handled it, and he had several interesting things to say that just kind of explains his mindset too. And I'm going to play them back to back to back, and it's really about like, was he surprised or shocked by this, and just how he's handling it, and his relationship with Quinn, and his future. So all those things are at play here. So these are some comments that Whitt had told the local media. By local media, I mean the DC media after Dan Quinn spoke today. Here's what he had to say.
No, I've been in this business long enough, and at the end of the day, it's about winning and about producing, and we've yet to do that this year. And so it wasn't necessarily anything that I was necessarily shocked by. We're here to win. So no different than if you move a player in and out. Sometimes that happens in coaching. So that doesn't matter if it's hard or not. It's the reality of what it is. The performance was not what it needed to be, and we're not winning. So it doesn't matter if it's hard or not. It is what it is. And one thing I never do, so we can keep this straight. When I'm doing up, when I'm doing good, I don't beat my chest. When I'm walking around and not doing good, I don't hang my head. That doesn't work for anybody. So the work is the work. I'm going to keep working my butt off, and that's what it is. I don't expect anybody to feel sorry. They shouldn't. That's the job we chose.
Any sense of what it means for you just for the long term here, or even
not worried about that now. Right now, just worried about winning this game. If we can win this game and get on a streak of winning and producing and playing better defense, we'll worry about that down the road. But right now, it is about, we came here for one reason, that's to win.
Whit's always kind of been a very straight shooter with us, and I can see why. Like, there's a lot to like about him and the way he handles these things. Like, I'm not talking about the defense. I think you should be mature enough to separate the two, I would hope. But I do, you don't always see guys handle it like this. And I think one of the things I always liked with his press conferences, I felt like we learned some things from him. You don't always get that from these coordinators. You just don't. And I think he was really good at that, at saying like, you know, this is what the Commanders need to do better. This is what our defense, when he would be talking, saying that, all right, this is what the defense needs to do better. All those things. And so he was pretty good with that. So I always appreciated that aspect. I felt like you came away learning something about what they thought. Now they were never going to give you the game plan, nor should they. That'd be kind of dumb. But you could get a sense of what needed to be fixed, or even, he was good at saying, I've got to do this. So now, again, it wasn't working. And as he said, he's not looking for sympathy, nor am I trying to give it to him. But I do respect that. And I think you can respect that as well. And if you don't, like, well, I'm sorry. But I think you can separate the two, say, respect this, didn't like this, okay with this. That's all fine. You can be 3 for 3 in all those areas. But again, the D hasn't produced, and he knows that. And that's why we're at this point. And I think part of the problem, too, is, again, the injuries are an issue. As both defensive ends are out, both starting corners are out. But before the starting corners were out, they weren't good. And before the second of the two ends went out, they weren't good. So it's not, now that's going to compound things, and it could make it really kind of a messy Sunday, but that's not why they were really bad. Like, they're going to have to dig deep and to be very honest about why they were so bad. But one of the things is the whole ball is life thing. The ball has, if the ball is life, like, a lot of people who aren't living because they've only caused 6 turnovers. Like, that's really bad. Only one team has fewer, and that's the Jets. The Jets, believe it or not, have only taken it away one time this year. That's astounding, because you think this is bad, and it is, and that's it. But that was an off-season emphasis, off-season topic, training camp topic, constant topic, and only 6 takeaways. So that's part of the problem. They're 29th in scoring, 30th in yards. Again, 29th in takeaways, because again, tied for 29. So, and even Whitt said, I didn't see this coming. And I think if coming out of camp, I don't think anybody really saw this coming, right? And again, if you knew all these guys are hurt, well, yeah, I say, okay, they're not going to be as good as you think. And I didn't think this was never going to be a top 10 defense, but you thought, like, hey, solid middle of the road, solid middle of the pack defense, which with that offense would be good. But so many injuries in offense, they needed the defense to kind of be a bell cow for a while, and they just couldn't do it. And there was false promise or hope out of camp for whatever reason. Sometimes it's, there's a lot of reasons they're going to have to dissect. And some of it was, again, like, the offense to me wasn't very good in camp. They're missing guys that could threaten this defense down the field and in coverages, et cetera. They didn't have, like, Debo is not your typical number, wide receiver that you're going to face. Terry is, Noah Brown is. So, and especially Terry, like, you don't have that out there. You weren't threatened by anybody else out there. Like, it wasn't the case. So it was hard to always gauge. And that's not to give excuse or anybody who was watching it, because there was always a caveat at that time. But I still think, like, that I would have expected better, right? Just would have, but not there. So that's where we're at with that. But I thought Whitt handled it well, and where it goes from here, who knows? I think it would seemingly be tough for him to return, but I don't know. This is the NFL. It's weird if it goes well at the end, and if he's okay with that, who knows? I don't think anybody's going to hire him as a defensive coordinator. So would there be a rush? But the question then becomes, does Dan Quinn really want to? I don't think Dan Quinn's going to want to stay as the defensive coordinator. So is there something where that goes back to him, or they just clearly move on? Like, that would be, it's kind of hard to not do that at this point, it would think, when you make this move. But see where it goes from here. I'm not in that. Can't predict that. We don't know that. I don't think they know that. So, and they're certainly not going to say it at this point. So anyway, long way to go there. Here we go. Number 2, I think it's been a good trip. And that's why I kind of slowed down a little bit. And I say that, and I kind of talked about this the other day in the midweek report, but it's been for a change of pace, change of scenery. I think it's been fun for the players listen, man, half the questions are coming from Spanish reporters. So you're not going to get the same things that you're going to get from us, right? And, like, we'll each, in the regular press conference, we're each going to get 2, or you're in the locker room talking to these guys. So you're getting a lot more stuff, and you're being asked more pointed questions overall. And so here, it's not that they're, some of the questions are pretty good, but they're not the same that, so I think it's been a good, and half of them are about like, hey, what do you think of Real Madrid's facility? What do you think of being in Spain? What do you think of playing in this game? Like those are things that are a little bit more fun for them to ask when you're 3-7. Like this is a good break for them. This is almost, it's not a bye week because you're playing, but in terms of like getting away from things, it's almost like another bye week because you're not having to deal with so much, of this in the locker room with us in there. And I talked about this the other day, but I do think that's something good. I think the bonding can be good. Players talking about going out to dinner a lot with each other and, hanging out in rooms. Like that's all good. What does it mean for the field? Last year, I think I knew what it meant for the field. And this year, I don't think it's hard to say that because they just don't like tell me who the playmakers are on either side of the ball. Like you need those guys. There aren't any. So what can be done when you can have all this and it can like I think what they need to do is this coach, Dan Quinn is coming back. So you want to continue to build off of the standards you have and what the expectations are. And you're going to have a lot of new players playing down the stretch because they've already had a lot of injuries. You probably get some more, and at some point there may be a couple guys you may want to test out a little bit. So you're going to have that. But this is, for a lot of these guys, it's still about like Zach Ertz said, you still want to put good film out there, whether it's for here or somewhere else. Like that's why I always, when people talk about, the whole team quits, no, they haven't. They haven't. Like that's just they haven't. But what also is going to happen is you're going to have guys who get opportunities that want to take advantage of it. So that's a good thing. That would be a good thing for them, for sure. But it also gives you, whatever to see what maybe factors in the future. And by the way, they also know, like I know I get a lot of questions about why is so and so, up or so and so not. If they think you're a part of the future, they're going to find a way to keep you around, and they'll find a way to get you on the field when you are ready. Like so and like I talked about River Craycraft, he might be active. But if he is, it's really not because of his receiver. It's because he can return kicks. That would be why he would be. If he is active, that would be why. So I think the problem is, again, despite all saying all this, that I think it's been a good trip. And for me, it's been fun because you get to, I love this country and I've been here before with my wife and my son. So, it's enjoyable it's also enjoyable to get away. Your first thought is, oh my gosh, it's going to be a long trip. It's been an exhausting stretch. Again, haven't had a lot of time off in about a month and a half. Like what I do, it's not a complaint, just a fact. For the treasure your job crowd, I do treasure it. But the thought of like having to, it's an 11-hour flight. It's a lot of work. You got, blah, blah, blah. And you get over here, it's like, this is a luxury to be able to cover this, right? This is a luxury to be in this position to come to Spain. ESPN is sending me to Spain to do this. So it really kind of, for me, it's also a break too from all the other stuff going on. So, it's been in that regard, and with 7 games left, you kind of needed that too. So anyways, that part has been enjoyable. The season, we all know what it is, folks. But this week, there's been some good things from that, for sure. And if there isn't, then shame on. If you don't find something positive in that, if you're here, shame on you. This is number 3. For Dan Quinn, there is no magic formula here. So I did talk to him for a couple minutes after the press conference today, and he told me a couple of things. One, like clearly, one person isn't going to be able to change all this because my big question is like, okay, what can you affect that makes the difference in making that? Because the consistency, the execution, what can you affect that gets them there? What things can you do? And I asked a lot of players that, and like the players all go back to, hey, it's on us. We're the ones that have to do it. And even Mikey Sanderson was like, there's no magic formula. We have to be the play comes in, we have to execute the play. It's really always that simple. Now, you can say, well, is it the right play? But if you still execute something right, even if it's wrong, like, then that's when that's coaching, right? If you're not getting enough plays, but if you aren't executing the play, then it's on you. And there are definitely times where you see like, okay, this could have been a play call, but this is an execution call. And it's been this. So why does that happen? So that's partly why Dan Quinn took over. He also told me, I asked him, like, is this also something where you can, like, you look at the players like, hey, this is a move, like this should send a signal to you guys that if I'm doing this to this guy, what can I do to you if things don't get better, if you don't play and prepare a certain way? And so he said, yeah, he goes, this is the one thing he told me is like, that was part of the thing. He wanted this to sharpen the focus And just like he wants them to know that, quote, this is unacceptable. So that is something that I think is that's partly why he made this move. It's almost like a little bit of a jolt to say, like, hey, this is serious. Like, this has to improve. And I think that's a good thing. Again, you got to get out of it. Can they? Again, they don't have any starting outside corners that were built that way. So you're going to have, I mean, the ones that they opened the season with. So you got Samerstill, Jones, both of them can play outside. We know that. And then Noah Igbenogany inside. So that's what you're going with. So they have to play well. The good thing is they've played together. But the other thing that Quinn told me that what he changed too, or not changed a little bit, but I think it was the emphasis. And it's really what you're emphasizing that, like Whitt said, nothing has changed throughout the week. He's still basically a big part of design, coming up with the play, the game plan. But for Quinn, one thing he said that he told me is that they're going over the plays over and over and over again until they got it right. And sometimes as many as 10 times. But if they didn't get it right, they're throwing the play out. That's what he was talking about. And so he said, like, it might be a smaller play sheet, but you got if we're going to throw out the ones you're not doing well, you better do the other ones right. So like, that's what I'm curious to see. Does that make a difference? If so, how? But it definitely, like I said, it definitely was partly to send a message to everybody else that this is not acceptable anymore. So anyway, number 4, this is a good chance for some young guys, starting with Johnny Newton. So he's going to start for Daron Payne, who of course is suspended. Quinn also named Newton a captain for this game, a pretty big honor. That's usually, like last week, Rodriguez was the captain, went out in offense. Now he didn't have this big game, but he got the ball more. They need Newton to produce more. He's a second round pick, a guy that, there are times like last year we flashed. There are times early in the year where you start to see some pockets like, okay, you see this, you see this. But he played a lot of snaps against Detroit. I think it was like 27. Need to see more. So I'm curious to see what can he do Sunday. Can he do more? Is he at that point yet? And I know early in the year, I remember talking to Daryl Tapp, defensive line coach, and like they felt like his get off was getting better. And so he had a couple games where that was the case, where according to Next Gen Stats, it was a little bit better. I don't know. I think for someone who's touted to have this great quickness, can he tap into that more? What can be done more to it? Is it anticipation? Because he does have that quickness, but can they get it to be a little bit quicker? I think that's going to be a key for him moving forward. Does that start Sunday, right? We'll see. There are times where he looks like he can play, right? A lot of it to me is related to the leverage. When you see him engage with a player, when you just look at the helmets, if his helmet's lower, he's probably going to win. There are a couple times, and he's not a big guy. And this is one of the things I talked about with Tapp earlier too, like using his height to his advantage. Like if you're shorter, use that to your advantage because you want to get into the pads quicker. And when you see that, that's when he does well. Sometimes you see him getting up a little bit, and if their helmet's lower, he's going to get moved or he's not going to get off the block. So I think that's something that you want to see, the consistency of that. And where is he at with that? So I think the more he plays, now Payne will be back the following game, but the more he plays down the stretch, like does he improve in those areas and become more consistent? Can he get to the quarterback a little more because he's not threatening the quarterback enough? Like that's the case. At least, against Detroit, he did not. And so I think that's something you'd want to see more. His pressure rate is 4.3%. It was 8.0% last year. Three pass rush wins, or considered pass rush wins this year, 11 last year. Now, there's always a caveat with that. Sometimes I look at those and say, like, I'm not sure that's a loss, or that, is that a win? But suffice to say, the measurements are the same, and so the numbers have gone down. So, why? And I think that's something to see too, because he's healthier. He's had that offseason. Is it just a matter of kind of getting back, getting the stride? Let's see. But I am curious to see how he fares on Sunday. He had one good rush against Detroit where I thought his hands and his quickness were pretty good. And there are a couple of times, like there's one time he played the double team really well where, he attacks one guy and then the second guy can't move him because he's engaged over here. And that's what you're taught to do. Another time he does that, but he does get moved. So there was some inconsistencies there. And then the thing I will also say, like his effort is always there. And that's, again, a good place to start, but you need to see the production and the results. And so, that's why I say, can you blame Joe Whitt for that? It's kind of hard to because, but guys got to produce. And I think that's something to do. So the other guy, but a couple other guys, Jalen Lane. So they used him. He didn't get as many snaps last week because they were using a lot of 12 and 13 personnel. Could see that doing it again too, because that's where the strength is, right? But what I do like with Jalen Lane, there's the thing again, you see snippets where like I'm curious to see how does he develop again for next year, because that's when if you can get, McLaurin will be back then, right? He'll be back in, you would hope he'd be healthy at that point with nothing else, right? So normal year for Terry. And I don't know what they're going to do with Debo. Could he be back? I think, to be honest, my guess is he probably would want to be, but we'll see what happens with that. Then it's all these cost. I would still try to find somebody, whether in free agency or the draft. So then, how does that impact Jalen Lane? Because I think if you can put him back where it would be best, probably is in the slot. How does that help him? And so you see the quickness with the feet. You see at times against press the quickness with some good hands off the line, better than not bad. And so that you see the speed on some of those deep crossers or deep overs, right? Like being able to run across, run away from guys. Those are good things. And you saw a really nice catch against Detroit last year. We're splitting the safeties, just kind of it was speed. And then he made a nice contested catch because of it. So those are good things. I think there are some times where he's still developing as a route runner. Sometimes like he's not as much a threat because he's not getting by guys. That's a development thing. Sometimes with the routes, like you want to run that in and cut back out, or sometimes like you've got to be able to sell it. And so you watch certain guys like Jackson Smith and Jigba, the way he sells it is phenomenal. Terry sells that pretty well. But when I've seen him do it, it's almost a little bit too fast where you're really not against whether it's Seattle, I think it was Seattle, didn't fool them because there wasn't, but I don't also know on the route, how much he's supposed to do that? But like if you're going to turn and do that, you got to sell it better. And so like that's where it is. The top of the routes, I think, is where he can also improve. And I know it's an area that he's focused on and felt he got better at. I think it's an area that he can continue getting better at for sure. But you do see enough flashes from him. We say, okay, can he be productive with, get more guys around him. So put him in the right role and then he can be even more productive. It's too bad that Trey Burks had the surgery on the finger, going to be out for, I don't know how long yet. I liked what he showed last week enough to where, again, when you're looking at next year, can he be part of that? That's what I'm curious to see over the next 7 games. It's too bad we're at this point, I know, but that's where we are. We'll see. But I like that he made some contested catches. I felt like he used his size well, came back for the ball a couple times, contested catches. He had the one down the sideline where he did a nice little stutter and go, beats the guy. He stays on his line and, good concentration, all good things. Can he be a 35 catch guy for you next year? Like that would be a good thing because you'd have Terry if you get that, but you need another one in there. And again, even if you bring Debo back, I'd still want another guy because you need to get some more youth at that position, not just youth because they have McCaffrey, they have Lane, and Burks is still young, but you need a highly productive young player to go with this. So that's what I would like to see them do at some point. So anyway, I thought that was pretty good. Did have one block where he kind of got blown up a little bit, but I wasn't watching enough for blocking. I was watching the route runnings. Josh Connolly, I felt, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on him, but I felt like he did a really good job against Aiden Hutchinson. Against Aiden Hutchinson, and better technique. Felt like he was really patient. And Hutchinson's done a really nice job this year turning the corner on guys. Was not really turning the corner on him. I felt like a couple times he was able to use, because of his base, because of his technique, he was able to apply a little bit more strength on him, and that definitely helped. So nice job by him. Again, I want to see the progression, the finish, because that'll tell a lot about where the line can be in 2026. Talking a lot about next year already. Hey, Commanders fans, want to make every drive a winning one? With the AAA Commanders MVP membership, you'll get trusted AAA roadside assistance, score Commanders gear with 15% off at the online pro shop, ticket giveaways, and exclusive team experiences. Whether it's game day or a weekend getaway, AAA keeps Commanders fans covered at home or on the road. Upgrade your current membership or join the team today at AAA.com/Commanders and drive like an MVP every day. All right, number 5. I think Miami is improving, and that's why this game went from a get-right game to a uh-oh game, right? And I think it's going to be hard because the Dolphins have some explosiveness. Jalen Waddle at receiver, Achane at running back. Like that's a good combination. There's a lot of speed there. You can play your coverage right. You can not play sound coverage and still get beat by a guy like Waddle because he's just faster than you. That would be my concern on Sunday. Not so much, are you in the right place for this? can you stop him from beating you over the top? That's going to be the challenge. And I think, that for sure is the problem, the issue with him. Can you do that? A-Chain, like I like A-Chain when he was coming out. And I think I was saying A-Chain, it's A-Chain. So anyway, one of the things I really like, he's been on a roll lately. Had a great game against Buffalo. Now he's the kind of guy who gets 4 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards, 3 yards, 59, 35. That's what he did against Buffalo. So he had 22 for a buck 72 for 90, was it 95, 94 yards, something like that. So 20 for about 80, and then the rest was on 2 runs. But that's what he does. So he's not going to run you over or anything like that. That's not his thing. He's speed. But he's slithery through the middle. One of the touchdowns came as a run up the middle, just a little bit slithery. Safety also very deep, didn't like the angle. But just that's what he offers. Then they do a good job of finding creative ways to get him the ball. Like against the Bills, the first play is on a jet sweep. So it's just he's a wing back, just a jet sweep and 8 or 9 yards. Then you have another play, it's a Mike McDaniel special. You have Tua, then you have two backs next to him. Then A-Chain is like split behind the receiver, a couple yards behind the receiver, and just like a fake here and then ball over here, 9 yards. So, they have one time you have a fullback basically lined up as a wing back. The last second he's going in motion to a fullback, then he's leading A-Chain to the left, right? More yards there. So, there are ways they're getting him the ball that are creative that help, but then his speed is what makes the difference. Like you can be creative getting the ball to somebody, but if you don't have the speed, it may not matter. He does. That's what the dangerous part is. And he can attack the edges for sure, but they will run him up the middle. So if you're not careful, he can bust out that way as well. So, and again, with Waddle, a lot of things going deep. 1/3 of his catches are on vertical routes, likes the crossers. So some deep ends, that's what you're going to do, but got to stop him. Got to stop A-Chain. Their defense is improving. I think Washington can probably move the ball a little bit. One thing I'll say is I was at the stadium just getting a tour, and they had like fake stats up on the scoreboard, and they had Washington with like 360, 370 yards of offense. So we'll see. Maybe they know something. Mariota with about 289 yards passing. They also had the Dolphins averaging 6.2 yards per carry. I'm like, well, could be. I think so. But anyway, their defense has been getting better, though, the Dolphins. Some of that can be who they're going against, but they did a good job against Buffalo for sure. So Bradley Chubb starting to apply. Their pass rush has been better lately, and it's funny because they just traded Jalen Phillips. But Chubb has had, of his 31 pressures this year, 16 in the last 2 games. So overall, they're 24th in scoring, 24th in yards. They are, I think, 26th in rushing yards. However, I think their rushing yards, so it's around 135 per game. Last 4 weeks, 96.5 yards rushing per game. So they are getting better there. Linebackers, you can have them, you can get them a little bit in coverage. They like to disguise. They will send simulated pressure. Anthony Weaver's their DC. He interviewed for the head coaching job here. So they will do that. They play a lot of man. They will mix in, obviously, decent enough zone. Their secondary's gotten better and getting a little bit tighter, but I do think you can. This is not the world's greatest defense, folks. We're talking going from kind of bad to being maybe average. So this, of the last 4 weeks, is the easiest defense they're going to face. So it's not Kansas City, it's not Seattle, it's not Detroit. So they do have a chance to maybe move the ball a little bit more on them in some way. So they will miss tackles, but they have emphasized punching the ball out a lot more. So these guys got to protect the ball. I think they only have 10 takeaways, but there's had I think it's like 8 forced fumbles since week 3, something like that. They do turn it over. Like Miami leads the NFL with 17 turnovers. So if you can get a couple things on offense, get a lead maybe for a change, force a turnover, maybe you can get something going here with that. That's what it will take. So if they do that, they have a shot. My concern is, who are the playmakers on either side of the ball? Who are the playmakers? Now, Mariota can make some plays just with his legs. That will help. But can he make enough? Can Debo, how's his heel? Can he make anything up? But otherwise, they don't have those playmakers that you really need. Jalen Lane, can you be a playmaker as a punt returner? Like they need a spark in some way where you're not getting it. Defensively, who are the playmakers? Mikey Sanders still can make plays. So, but they need other guys to get there, right? They need Frankie Louvu to have a big game at some point. As a pass rusher, he just hasn't done it off the edge. It has not been a great thing for him, rushing the passer. So what can they do different? And that partly they put him there because they wanted to get Jordan McGee on the field. And, we'll see what happens. But anyways, Going to be tough, but I think the offense can do more than what they have done. I think the question is, can the defense slow those explosive guys? Because Miami's kind of like 30.6, 30.6. So we'll see what happens. But I think they have a shot, but you got to limit those explosives and you got to find a way to take the ball away, get a spark, get it going, get out of the country with the win, go to the bye feeling a little bit better than you have. So anyway, folks, that's it from me from my lovely hotel room in downtown Madrid. Um, I will talk to you after the game. If you're at the game, have fun, and I will talk to you next time.